Next up in our series with Adobe Illustrator is an assignment or a project in which you are going to create an original picture using Adobe Illustrator and using the things that we have learned so far. We've talked about creating shapes, we've talked about how to fill shapes, we've talked about symbols. Now it's time to take the things that you have learned so far and put them to work in a little bit larger project, and one that where you're really kind of on your own to come up with whatever kind of picture you want. Let me show you a couple of things. First of all, a peek at mine. In my example, I decided to make this building, which is the headquarters for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and I have a whole lot of things that go along with that. I've got this radar dish over here. In fact, let me mark this up just a little bit here. I'll get a paintbrush, I'll make it a little bit different color. I've got this radar dish over here, and here's the building itself, and of course I've got like the moon up here. I got this rocket ship, this telescope, several little details like these stars, the planets, that star there, this planet, got a moon sitting over here. Lots of little details on the building like windows and microscopes, and I've got some text on there, and a little bit of detail on the doorway where I have windows and knobs on the doorway and a symbol above the doorway. So again, it's a matter of coming up with an idea and then adding some detail to it, kind of fleshing it out. I'm just going to use Control Z to undo all those red markings that I made on here. There we go. Now, to get you kind of oriented for this, on our courses drive on Drive L, I've got a handout it's number 4, original picture. All right, so I'm going to pull that up. And here are things that you need to know about this assignment. This one has more points assigned to it, so you get more time. This is going to be a 2-day thing. You have today and tomorrow to work on this. More points means a little more picky on the grading, certain things I'm going to be looking for here. And here's the main idea I already described to you. You got to create an original image. You have to dream up something in your head and make it in Adobe Illustrator. But here are the required things. First of all, you have to have at least 2 gradients in your picture someplace, 2 of them. We've talked about gradients. I'll point mine out in my example here in just a minute. So you have to use at least 2 gradients. You have to use at least 3 symbols. We did an assignment on symbols, so you have to use at least 3 different symbols out of the symbol libraries. Okay, got it. You have to do that to get the points. Have to use at least 5 shapes. All right, now those can be things like circles, rectangles, stars, polygons. It could even be lines or curves, but you have to use at least 5 shapes. And again, I'll go back to my example here in a minute and show you more about that. You have to have at least 1 text item. You have to use the text tool or the type tool at least 1 time and put some text on it someplace. All right, so those 4, and then effort counts as well. And when effort just means that you put a little thought and a little planning into what you're doing. I don't want just a bunch of random stuff slapped on an artboard and say, oh, okay, that's good enough. It's got to look like you put a little effort and a little thought, and it's got to, it just got to show that you thought about it and you were trying to do a good job. Now here's how the scoring works. Your 2 gradients are worth 10 points. That would be 5 points each. Your 3 symbols are worth 15 points. That would be 5 points each. Your 5 shapes, 30 points. That would be 6 points each for each shape. Your 1 text item, 10 points for that. And the effort score, where I kind of look at it and think, okay, did this person try? Did they put some effort into what they were doing? If I feel like you did, 10 points for that. If I feel like you didn't, you lose the 10 points. 75 points total when you add all of that up. Now this says we're shooting for 1 class period. Actually, you'll have 2 class periods to do this, so don't worry about trying to get it all done in 1 day. Some of you might get it done in 1 day, but you don't have to get it done in 1 day. But you will have 2 class periods to finish this up if you need it. All right, saving. Make sure you save on Drive H on your network drive. And for your file name, I don't know what you're going to make, so you can just call it My Picture. That would work. That'd be great. Now I'm going to go back over here to Illustrator for a minute, and I want to kind of, if I were going to grade this, let's say that somebody turned this in and I'm grading it. Well, okay, I said you have to have at least 2 gradients. Okay, well, see the ground here? That's a gradient, because look, it's lighter at the top, it's darker at the bottom. That came out of the gradient, the swatches panel, the gradient libraries, so that's a gradient. These windows right here are gradients. I'm going to pull them off here. Those windows are gradient. Even these little craters on the moon are circles that have gradients on them, and really even this kind of dark sky in the background is a gradient as well. You can see that it's lighter and then gets darker toward the edges. Alright, so there's gradients. What else do we have to have here? Let's look back at these requirements. 2 gradients, at least 3 symbols. Well, okay, that's actually a flare, but this planet with a star swinging around it, that came out of the symbols library. The rocket came out of the symbols library. The telescope came out of the symbols library. The microscope came out of the symbols library. This thing over the door came out of the symbols library. Okay, well, yep, that's at least 3. Okay, 5 shapes. This rectangle that fills the building, that came out, that's a shape. That's a rectangle, obviously. Okay, these windows, that's a rectangle, and these little science tables are rectangles. So all of those would count, even though they're the same shape. And by the way, I didn't draw all those. I did an alt drag. Remember the alt drag trick? All right, every one of these stars up here would count as shapes. So I got all these stars. And again, I didn't make all those stars. I made one, and then I did alt drag. And we talked about that in one of the previous assignments. Hold down the Alt key, drag the shape with the black arrow, and you can make extra copies. This circle would count as a shape. The radar dish has all kinds of shapes that are, it's just lines, a bunch of lines and circles and things that are put together. Golly. Yeah, I've got at least 5 shapes. Okay, what else? One text item. Well, right here. Actually, I broke this into 2, but I have that text that was right above the door of the National Headquarters for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So, I've got my text thing there. And, you know, I think it does look like I put some effort into it. If I were to Control Z and just put all this back together, do a whole bunch of Control Z's until it all comes back together. There we go. I put some effort and some thought into that. It's got a theme to it. It's put together with some thought. So yeah, I think I did okay on this assignment. Well, it's the kind of thing I'm looking for from you too. You put together an original picture using shapes, symbols, gradients, text, and put some effort into it, and you're good. Well, it is time for you to get started and start hacking on your own. So good luck, and we'll see you soon.